Right. So, we've been diving deep into some pretty wild theories lately, but this one takes the cake.
Yeah, this one's a doozy.
You send over some really fascinating stuff about pole shifts, ancient civilizations, and maybe even some global, cataclysms,
Cataclysms.
the whole shebang. And it all comes from this YouTube video you found analyzing a declassified CIA document,
Oh, yeah.
which always makes for a good deep dive. Am I right?
Always a good starting point.
So it's all about this book, The Adam and Eve Story, by Dr. Chan Thomas.
The Adam and Eve story.
Yeah, so could there be some truth behind these, end-of-the-world prophecies?
Well, the title does sound pretty innocent, The Adam and Eve story. It doesn't exactly scream apocalypse now,
Yeah.
but the scenario that Dr. Thomas lays out is pretty dramatic.
I mean, and the CIA classified it initially,
Right.
which, it adds a certain mystique to the whole thing, right?
It does, although the video did point out that there's also, a shopping list tucked in there and a magazine clipping. It makes it a little less top secret, maybe.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of the edge off.
Right. Probably just routine declassification, not some big cover-up of earth-shattering secrets.
Okay, so maybe not a conspiracy, but still, Dr. Thomas describes some pretty wild stuff in this book.
He does.
So he paints this vivid picture of a pole shift. And we're talking mountains shaking a 2-mile-high wave in the Pacific Ocean, winds over 1,000 miles an hour.
Whoa.
He even talks about skyscrapers crumbling and people getting tossed around like they're in a blender.
He really does like to paint a picture, doesn't he?
He does.
Those descriptions are pretty visceral. I mean, they really make you realize the sheer scale of the destruction he's envisioning.
Right, it's like you can almost feel it.
Yeah, you can see why this imagery sparks those end-of-days theories.
It makes you wonder if there's any truth to those ancient flood myths that seem to pop up in cultures all over the world.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not just talking about Noah's Ark here.
Right.
There's the Mayan Hodan flood. You know, that's actually where we get the word hurricane from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then you got the Haiyan Nu flood, the Sumerian tales.
So
It
many.
really is a global phenomenon.
Almost like these stories are like echoes of some collective memory, like a massive event.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they are based in reality, you have to think about what that says about civilizations, and the fragility of it all.
It definitely makes you wonder what knowledge might have been lost.
What lessons we could learn for the future.
Absolutely. And, while these myths are often very symbolic, they do seem to line up with geological evidence that points to these massive floods,
Okay.
potentially triggered by, melting glaciers at the end of the last ice age. So that's the Younger Dryas, that period of rapid climate change about 11,500 years ago.
Right, but Thomas claims the last flood wasn't tied to the Younger Dryas. He says it happened way later.
Much later, yeah.
Around 6,500 years ago.
6,500 years ago.
Is there any evidence that even backs up that timeline? I mean, it seems way off from what scientists generally accept.
Well, actually, there have been some recent archaeological discoveries in China, the Mediterranean, the Black Sea, that seem to support this later timeline.
Yeah.
It's like the flood myths and the physical evidence are starting to tell the same story.
Okay, so now we're getting into lost civilizations territory, right?
Lost civilizations, yeah.
Could there be truth to these legends of Atlantis and Mu?
Well, Thomas certainly thought so. He believed these civilizations existed before the floods
Wow.
and were wiped out by those cataclysmic events.
So they were victims of these pole shifts.
Exactly. And of course, we haven't found definitive proof of Atlantis.
Right.
But there are some pretty intriguing clues out there.
Like, give us the details.
Well, there's the Richat structure in Africa. They call it the Eye of the Sahara because it's got these concentric rings and this overall shape that looks eerily similar to Plato's descriptions of Atlantis.
Oh.
And then you have these giant ripples in landscapes all over the planet.
Right.
These point to massive ancient floods, the kind that could really, reshape continents.
And we're not talking small ripples, right?
No, we're talking features that are taller than a 5-story building.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then there are sites like the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan, Nanmadol in Micronesia with this incredibly advanced irrigation system, and even Easter Island with those buried statues.
Right.
Some researchers believe these could be remnants of those lost lands.
So maybe the Easter Islanders didn't need to sail thousands of miles in canoes.
Maybe they just walked there.
What?
It's a fascinating thought, right?
It is.
It's still debated among researchers.
Right.
But it's certainly an intriguing possibility.
It is.
But before we get too carried away with lost civilizations, let's get back to those pole shifts.
Okay.
We talked about what they might look like, but how does Thomas believe they actually happen?
Yeah.
And maybe even more importantly, when's the next one supposed to hit?
Right, because if that 2-mile-high wave is anything to go by,
Yeah.
I'm thinking a little advance notice would be nice.
To say the
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about a 2-mile-high wave, I think we all deserve a little heads up.
Yeah, just a little.
So how does Thomas explain these pole shifts? Like, what's the mechanism behind them?
Okay, so his model hinges on the idea that there are these molten layers deep within the Earth.
Molten layer?
Yeah, like molten rock.
Okay.
And they basically act like a lubricant.
The lubricant.
Yeah, when the planet's magnetic and electrical fields get disrupted.
Wait, so you're telling me there's like a sea of liquid fire under our feet?
Not exactly a sea, but yeah, there are layers of molten rock in the Earth's mantle.
I see.
It's all about the Earth's structure, right? It's not static. It's dynamic, always shifting and moving, and these molten layers are a big part of that.
Okay, so what's that got to do with the pole shifts?
Well, what Thomas suggests is that when those magnetic and electrical fields get unstable, these molten layers become more fluid.
More fluid.
Yeah, and this allows the Earth's crust, which includes the continents and those giant ice caps, to kind of slide around.
So the ice caps are like giant weights pulling the crust off balance and causing the poles to shift.
It's a pretty dramatic visual, isn't it? And according to Thomas, this all happens really fast, like in a day or two.
A day or two.
Yeah.
That's not exactly a lot of time to like pack a go bag.
No, you don't get much warning in this scenario.
So is there any like scientific basis for that timeline?
Well, that's where Thomas's model gets a little shaky. He doesn't really provide much scientific backing for this super fast timeline.
Right.
This is where we need to start separating the speculation from the hard science.
Okay, cue the skeptical music. So what does science actually say about the possibility of pole shifts and, their impact? I mean, at this point, I'm not sure if I should be building a bunker or just investing in a really good surge protector.
I think a good surge protector is never a bad idea.
Okay.
But seriously, it's a great question, and it brings us to a really important point.
Okay.
While Dr. Thomas's theory is intriguing, we need to look at what the scientific evidence actually tells us.
Right, so hard evidence, not just speculation.
Exactly. So let's start with those earthquakes you mentioned earlier.
Oh.
They actually do shift the Earth's axis.
Really? I had no idea earthquakes could do that.
Oh, yeah, they do, but the shifts are very small. We're talking centimeters.
Centimeters, okay.
And thankfully, we have the moon's gravitational pull to thank for keeping things relatively stable.
So the moon's like our bodyguard.
Exactly. It acts like a giant anchor, preventing any really drastic shifts in the Earth's axis.
Okay, so maybe a little wobble here and there, but nothing apocalyptic just yet.
Not from earthquakes, anyway.
So what about those magnetic pole reversals the video talked about? Are those as catastrophic as Thomas makes them seem?
Magnetic pole reversals are definitely a real phenomenon, and we are, in fact, overdue for one.
Overdue.
But the geologic record shows no mass extinctions associated with these events.
So no giant floods or sunken continents when the poles flip?
Not according to the evidence we have.
Okay, that's a bit of a relief, honestly.
I know, right? But the real danger lies in the weakening of the magnetic field leading up to a reversal.
Okay, explain that.
So the Earth's magnetic field acts like a shield, right? It protects us from harmful solar radiation.
Right, it's like our planet's personal force field deflecting all that cosmic energy.
Exactly. So if that shield weakens, we become much more vulnerable to solar storms.
And those can be bad.
They can be pretty serious.
So how bad could a solar storm really be? Like, what happens if one of those solar storms hits us with a weakened magnetic field?
Well, think about all the technology we rely on every single day. Our satellites, power grids, communication systems.
Right.
A major solar storm could disrupt or even damage these systems.
Oh, wow.
We're talking widespread blackouts, communication outages, even disruptions to GPS navigation.
So it's not just like our phones going haywire.
No, it could be much more serious than that.
I mean, it makes you realize just how dependent we are on technology.
Right.
And how vulnerable it all is to something we can't even see coming.
It is a sobering thought, and it highlights the importance of investing in resilient infrastructure and developing strategies to mitigate the impact of these events.
So it's less the world ending in fire and fury and more like the internet goes down indefinitely.
It's a bit of an oversimplification, but yeah, you're getting the idea.
Well, that's not exactly comforting.
Yeah.
But it does feel a bit more manageable than a sudden planetary shift.
The effects of a magnetic field reversal would be more subtle and long-lasting than the sudden cataclysm that Thomas describes.
Right.
It's not about one single event.
Okay.
It's about understanding the interconnectedness of these phenomena and how they could impact our lives in unexpected ways.
So where does all this leave us? I mean, should we be stocking up on canned goods and building underground bunkers?
I always advocate for a healthy level of preparedness,
Sure.
but I don't think we need to go full-on doomsday prepper just yet.
Okay.
I think the key takeaway here is awareness.
Awareness.
The more we understand about these natural phenomena, the better equipped we'll be to mitigate the risks.
Knowledge is power.
Exactly. And it's not just about understanding the science, it's about questioning assumptions and being open to different perspectives.
Just like we've been doing with Dr. Thomas's theories, right?
Precisely.
Even if some of his ideas are a little out there, he got us thinking about pole shifts in a whole new way.
Absolutely. While his timeline might be off-personaling, his work raises important questions about our planet's history, the cyclical nature of these events, and the potential for future disruptions.
It's like he gave us a new lens to view the world through, one that makes you wonder, what other clues have we missed? What other evidence is out there waiting to be discovered?
And that's where you, the listener, come in.
Ooh, I like it.
What other evidence supports or challenges these theories? What precautions can we take as individuals and as a society to prepare for potential disruptions to our technology and infrastructure? These are questions worth exploring.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from ancient flood myths to the potential impacts of solar storms. It's amazing to think that even with all our scientific advancements, there's still so much we don't know about our own planet.
That's the beauty of scientific inquiry, isn't it? There's always more to discover, more to learn, and more to question.
It never ends.
And sometimes even the most seemingly outlandish theories can spark a journey of exploration and lead to unexpected insights.
Well said. Thanks for diving deep with us today and for sharing your expertise on this fascinating topic.
It was my pleasure.
And to you, dear listener, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and never lose that sense of curiosity. Until next time, happy diving.